Hello, Dave here. This mini morsel is Learn JavaScript with me, and we're working on Chapter 6, Date Object Introduction. And the book I'm working from is Modern JavaScript, Developed and Designed by Larry Ellman. No affiliation with Larry Ellman, except I'm reading his book and I'm learning JavaScript. Just picked it up on Amazon, normal popular book out there, and I believe it's going for around 25 bucks right now. Once again, Modern JavaScript, Develop and Design, and I'm working through the exercises, and I'm in Chapter 6. So I've been going through, I've done the exercises start in Chapter 4, and then continue through Chapter 5. Now I'm in Chapter 6. We're starting to get into some real action now. And as we go on, again, it gets more and more complex. Still pretty basic, but that's the learning process. So if I zip down here, you see my Chapter 6. There's 4 exercises here. That's been pretty consistent. 4 in Chapter 4, 4 in Chapter 5. And now 4 in Chapter 6, we're going to talk about this date object intro. And we're talking about the date object. The date object exercise, the actual book exercise was just putting out the date in a certain format. I went ahead and added these methods in here to show the different, and just so that I could type them myself, to show the different display possibilities and methods to use on them, and just to work with it and get some exercise with it. Just to show you how mine works, I hit this button and it shows this to-date string, which would show the date as Wednesday, June 27th, 2012, which is today when I'm recording this. And the book exercise would show it as right now. It is Wednesday, June 27th, 2012 at 21:29, showing it in military time there. And once again, I can go up here and show it in ISO format, which would look like that. And once again, just so that I can play around with the HTML and the JavaScript, how it works together, and keep it going. So this is part of my learning process. And once again, I can zip back and go to my other exercises at any time up here. And I'm calling it a showcase, just to be spiffy. And this is the one we're talking about in this video, and we'll go into excruciating detail right now. So this is Firefox right here, and we're going to go ahead and use Firefox to debug this, and I can show you the actual code behind this exercise. Before we do that, let's go ahead and take a look at it in Chrome here. And if I go to Chrome and bring up just the w3 schools.com, the date object, it brings up all these various methods, and you'll know down here, here's these 2 methods here. These are the same methods that I'm using here. I just picked these. So one, I could get the exercise of typing them, and just to see how they work. But the beauty of JavaScript and Chrome and all of these wonderful availabilities, the availability of Firebug and Firebug Lite is that, and notice I'm bringing up Firebug right here. That's my Firebug button, and it's got a console. And if I go ahead and just detach that from the bottom so we can look at this, let's resize that a little bit, right? So we have all these methods here. And we have a console here. I'll go ahead and clear it so we start from scratch. And we can go ahead, let's go ahead and create our very first date object. In fact, let me move this out of the way. And you'll see here, there are 4 ways of instantiating a date, or let's just make that easier to pronounce for challenged individuals like myself. Creating a date object, right? So we can create new date. Notice that the D in date is capitalized. JavaScript, very, very case sensitive, always makes a difference. So let's go ahead and create a date. If we don't put anything between the parentheses there, it'll create it for today's date. So I'll do var d1 equal new date, put in the parentheses, hit enter. Now it created a date object called D1. So I can do D1, hit enter, and it is showing me this date here. Notice that it's green and it's got the squirrely brackets on the end. If I go ahead and say D2 equal D1 and do D2, right? Same thing. Now I just have 2 dates out there. I guess I was trying to show that if I go down and do one of these 2, it returns the date as a string. So let's go ahead and do this 2 ISO string. And note that ISO and JSON, the JavaScript object notation, these 2 are only available in certain browsers so far. I'm using Chrome and Firefox, and they're available in both of my browsers. So if I do D2 dot 2 ISO string, notice that I get the red in quotes, and it is showing me a string value as opposed to the date object value. So let's just look at a couple more things here in the console. The console is a wonderful thing. Play around with it, get a good feel for it. So if I do D3, let's create a new one. Var D3 equal new date. And I'll go ahead and make this 10 22 12. And if we see what D3 has, notice that it's Monday, October 22nd, 2012. And I just want to show you changing month, day, year here quickly. So I can go ahead and change this D3 using the methods dot set date. And again, I'm using this set date here, right, which sets the day of the month of a date object. So set date equal to D3 dot get date plus 4. And now if I do D3, notice that we're on Friday, October 26th, 4 days later. So set date changes the day. And I just hit the up arrow key to go up, and then I'll just walk through just like Windows, whatever it is, the command prompt type of thing. Your up arrow just brings up your previous command, save me from doing a lot of typing. And I'll do set month. Notice you have to, case sensitive, very important. Now do the get month plus 2. And let's look at D3. Notice I have tons of items up here, so let's move down and see what it is. Now it's Wednesday, December 26th, right? October, November, December. So it's 3 months later. Let's get down to the command here. And notice that set year is depreciated. We need to use set full years. And that's just the 2-digit versus 4-digit. But let's do set full year. Whoops. Let's hit the right keys. And get full year plus 5. And display that. Right, here's our set full year plus 5, and now it's 2017. Okay, so good idea to take a look at our, whoops, let's go back here at our date object here. Let me turn this off. Anyway, have all of these ones to play with, get a feel for it, enjoy it. Let's go ahead and return to Firefox and buzz through the actual exercise and look at the JavaScript that is making this specific JavaScript program tick. All right, back in Firefox, and I am debugging this on my local host, on my XAMPP server, but you're welcome to go to js.davecoast.com. These are all out there. Debug away, and you can get there, like I said, by going to js.davecoast.com. You can go to davecoast.com and click on the Learning JavaScript from the nav bar here, and it'll take you to the same place. And you can go down and pick an individual one or go by chapter. But let's go ahead and debug away and walk through this program. Pretty straightforward. On the date object, once again, how this works. I could pick a method, and let's do the locale string, which basically takes time zones into effect based on where your server is. And that's my date method item up here. And here's the actual, this is what the book exercise was doing, is just getting the date out into the HTML. So I click format date, and that's how it looks. So let's turn on Firebug, and I'll go ahead and detach this once again so we can have this in a workable situation here. Let's bring that up a little bit. Get this back on screen, and I'll reload. And let's just size this out a little bit. Here's the, right, there's the HTML. And I basically just went, had a breakpoint on there. Here's all of the items that are available, and I picked chapter 6 dates.js because that's the JavaScript script that we want to debug. So choosing that guy. Back in here, here's the code, and at the very first executable statement, which notice it's there today equal new date. I just click here, see the little red dot, gives us a breakpoint. And let's see if I can just open that up a little bit more. And here's some watch expressions. So I'll go ahead and choose to ISO string, and I'll click Format Date. It stopped at my breakpoint, and notice it stops before it executes that breakpoint. And I'm going to just pull this out a little bit here so that we can see these values here. Right, we got window.onload. These are all undefined right now. We haven't done anything. It has not executed that statement yet. Here's our step into. I can hit F11 or click on this guy here. So I click on it. It executes the next statement. And so it created this today variable. And notice when I hover over it, right? See, these guys are all undefined down here. And this is a cool thing about Firefox Debugger. I hover over it. Notice it's got that green date object showing us the value of that object, which is the current time right now. And if I look over here, I have today in the watch variables, and it shows me that value. And if it was a string, it would be in red in quotes. But let's go ahead and continue stepping on. So, right, this thing works bottom to top, right? And it started out window.onload, wait for the format button. So once the window was loaded, it waited for me to hit this button, right? I made a selection, I hit the button, and then it called this function here, did the document get element by ID with that on submit, and called the function format date, which is right here, the function format date. And that's what we're in right now. And that was this first executable statement. So we executed one statement so far, and we're about to execute the second statement. So let's execute it. And now notice that message has in red, in quotes, because it's a string, right? So over here, we have a green object and a red string. Firefox makes everything so nice and easy to understand, right? So this was just creating a message, and we just put some text in here, and we did this locale date string. And again, this piece of the puzzle here, right? This is part of that book exercise, and I kind of did it backwards. This is actually filling this guy here. And that's how that book exercise was telling us to do it, right? But it's doing today dot, right? See, today dot to locale date string. And that's the method that it's using. And it's putting that into this message variable as a string. Continuing on. So now we've executed that. Right now it is Wednesday, right? That's all added together. Here's our book date format, right? And it's doing the document get element by ID. So it's putting it out to this book date format. Let me bring up, here's the HTML. And I will make this available in a post, but again, you can look at it directly from Firebug here, right? You could always go to the HTML and see it right in here. All right, let's go back to the script here. But here's the key pieces of the information. Here's the form and the divs of those forms, and here's the formatted date method ID and the format date ID. Once again, I just use goofy names so that I keep this straight. And here is the actual JavaScript code that we're walking through. That's the same code that we have right here. And that's just bringing it up in my text editor. Let's keep going here. So now we change that variable, so we just put that out. And now if we're checking to see whether this text content, right, if it's undefined, and this allows us to put this variable into the HTML, right? And that's why we either use text content or inner text. And it depends on which browser you're using. So if I go down, it looks like this browser supports text content. So now the next time I hit this, see, I go down to that next string, look, it filled in the actual data on the screen with that, with the text variable, right? And that's the message variable, and it put it out there with the document.getElementById. Okay, so continuing on, because now we have to do this piece over here, we do formatted date method ID, and that's, I'm just calling that because I'm doing the date method of choice here. And and we create a variable for it, and doing a switch statement to do all the various cases, just so you can see them. And notice that there's one of each of these for each of these cases. It won't open up because I'm in the middle of debugging that. So continuing on. So case, is it toDate string? No. Is it toISO string? I think it is. So we should execute this statement down here. And we're about to execute it. And it now filled that information, right? I just did the name of the method concatenated with the actual value, right? Now break, so it jumps out of this switch loop. And we zip down here and doing the same thing with the text content or inner date. So now we're getting ready to put it back out here. Okay, so text content is available. Now executing this next statement should fill this area. And there we go. Here is our information there, showing it out there. And whoops. Come on. Just try to make that a little bigger so we can see what's going on. So now return false to complete the process, and we're done. And I'll come back up here. I'll remove the breakpoint. I'll go ahead and reattach this to the bottom, and I'll turn off Firebug on this page. And you see, right, here's those different case statements, right? How many of these did we have in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It works. So anyway, so here's introduction to the date object, learning JavaScript from the book Modern JavaScript, Develop and Design. Thank you very much for watching. Everything is available at davecoast.com, and you can go to js.davecoast.com and play around, debug, enjoy. I recommend typing them out yourself. And actually, the more typing you do and debugging, the more you learn. Thank you very much for watching.